May I help you?
Yes. Could I speak to the drug dealer of the house, please?
I beg your pardon?
It's a beautiful day, and we're out killing drug dealers. Are there any in the house?
I understand you're interested in drug dealers.
Yes.
Jack, that's him, the henchman with the glass eye.
Sir, are you a henchman?
No, I only go as far as lackey. Will there be anything else?
Yeah, take off your sunglasses.
Who's asking?
The Tin Man.
Did you grow up with the NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV. They're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Games, movies, music, and TV. They're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of This Week in Geek. This Week in Geek.
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net's Loose Cannon. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone as we take yet another exciting trip to the movies. This time we're going back to the nostalgic 1990s. I'm joined by my co-host on Twig, my comedic sidekick who most often tries to get me not into saying something stupid.
Alex, the producer. Sorry, sometimes I let you just fall flat on your face because it's hilarious.
Yeah, that does happen more often than I'd like to admit. And Aaron Pollyea providing the voice of reason on this show.
Well, I'm the voice of reason now. That's terrifying.
So yes, guys, we are back here on Loose Cannon. This show is kind of dedicated to us talking about movies, be they B movies, kind of sleeper, big budget movies, or just things that we just want to talk about because we don't have a dedicated movie podcast, but now we do. So this will be one of the last shows that you'll be hearing for the rest of the year here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. We're gonna bring back Loose Cannon back in 2021 with more shows, more varied topics. We talked about in our last episode very briefly at the beginning, maybe talking about the teenage sex comedies, maybe as we go into Valentine's Day, maybe we'll do a kind of double feature for that. So,
well, Michael, have you ever seen Kentucky Fried Movie?
No, I have not.
I
have clips of it.
I have seen it once. Maybe do pair that up with a Canadian classic like Porky's.
Yeah, because I've never seen Porky's.
Oh God! All right, yeah. I saw that probably, but before I was 10. That's terrible. But
I've also never seen Meatballs.
You've never seen Meatballs? Oh wow, geez. Okay,
so,
I've seen Meatballs.
So we have some ideas.
Obviously. Yeah. That's crazy.
So yeah, we are going to be talking about those in the new year, but it's not the new year yet. So hopefully you have gotten your holiday shopping done. You are locked down in your bunker as we enjoy quarantine and lockdown as we enjoy the holiday season. So hopefully your doors are hermetically sealed with tinsel and all that other shiny shit. We're going to talk about something about the summer blockbuster that kind of fizzled, but is still memorable, oddly enough. And
I have been singing the praises of this movie since I was 7.
I have seen this movie twice in my life. I did see this at a drive-in theater many years ago, and that is the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, Last Action Hero. This was sort of a movie about John McTiernan, the same guy who did Predator, Die Hard, Hunt for Red October, and some other big budget movies, and then he just kind of went away for a while. He did something for Ubisoft a couple years ago.
Well, he did. I remember he did the third Die Hard movie.
Die Hard with a Vengeance.
13th Warrior was good. That was the one with Antonio Banderas and then the Vikings.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thomas Crown Affair, which I didn't see.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
The crappy Rollerball remake. Watch the original; it's a lot better. And then he did Basic, which I don't think I saw. That was in that era of like when John Travolta was doing a million movies that nobody saw. And then he's done nothing literally since
2017, I think.
As far as movies go, he hasn't done anything in 17 years.
Yeah, he did a short film for Ubisoft for one of the Ghost Recon games, I think. And that evidently won some kind of award or was nominated for something. But yeah, he hasn't been in the game for quite some time.
Yeah, in the early 90s, he was right up there with James Cameron as like the premier action guy. So I maybe before we go into the story, so do you guys have, like, what's your background with this film? Maybe Michael, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So this movie came out, I'm not sure what year it was.
93.
93. So I'm young. I'm still in grade school at this time. But I remember I used to hang out with my next door neighbor, Melissa, and her father, Paul, and they would often go to the drive-in, which was really cool, which you can see. I think the movie's Rounders with Vin Diesel and Jon Favreau. That drive-in's my local drive-in, which is no longer there anymore. But I remember going to see this movie with them, and I remember being excited because it was Arnold Schwarzenegger. There was an action figure line, which I had every single one, and didn't really know what it was about. I just knew it was some kid who could go into the movie. So anyway, I went there and saw this in the most 80s car you could possibly imagine. It was like driving a boat. And it was a interesting experience. It was fun though, because I saw this in, like I said, that old school drive-through on AM radio. So the sound quality is utter shit. The speakers cracked because I guess, the kids at the time, like Melissa and Mark, who were Paul's kids, had blown the speakers in the car, so they crackled all the time. And when you went to the drive-in, they're like, please tune to AM 580 or something like, it was some really, really low channel. And you would listen in, or maybe it was FM, I don't know. And it was like that old stale popcorn and all that shit. But it was a fun ride. And I remember that the Christmas of 93, getting all the action figures from my parents for this. And this sticks out very clear in my mind. The last time I saw my mother, my grandmother, the one who raised me, Marie, alive, she didn't take very good care of our house, unfortunately. She was like a bit of a hoarder, but she always kept some of my toys around. And in this big wooden china cabinet like thing, sitting in a coffee cup, was a little Jack Slater figure that could like break bricks or something. And he just sat in that coffee cup for like 20 plus years. So Last Action Hero has literally been a part of my life since 1993. It was kind of weird. Watching it again for like the first time since 93 was, I guess, as of this recording, like a couple of weeks ago. But I had a lot of fun with it again. This movie's very weirdly paced. It's not bad, but it's almost like it's like two separate movies, and I had a lot of fun with it.
We'll definitely get into that.
I'm honestly surprised this movie has not been attempted again.
Oh God!
We'll get to that too.
So those are my thoughts.
So what about you, Aaron?
I saw this in the theater. I was in high school, and I made a point of seeing every single Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. The summer before 1992, I had actually seen every single movie that had a wide release, and every single one, didn't matter what it was, and this summer I remember it being just kind of I'm not going to do that again, so I'm going to kind of pick and choose what I see. And this was one of them because I absolutely love Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I loved it in the theater. I absolutely loved it. I can't say that I had any toys for it, but I didn't even understand that it bombed in the theater. Like the theater that I went to seeing it, it was a packed theater. I mean, it was opening weekend. It was an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Well, of course.
Bombed into today's day and age, 137 million isn't a lot, but it made almost double its budget.
Yeah, that's probably equal to its.
It was a bomb compared to Arnold's previous films, not compared to like Bruce Willis or some other action star.
So I probably haven't watched this in about 10 years. I mean, I own it, but it's not a movie I tend to watch very often. And so I just watched it today. And I'll say that my view on the film has changed, not for the worse. I actually think it's better than I remembered it. But there were a couple scenes that actually hit me right in the feels in a way that I don't remember it ever doing before.
Because we're all adults now.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe it's the point in my life where just suddenly one of these, one scene for whatever reason actually drew tears out of me. And that's hard to do, I would say, for any movie, regardless, but especially for an action satire to do that. Maybe I can talk about that scene later, but
absolutely, yeah. Well, this is a deeper movie than I think most critics gave it credit for, especially back then. Like my background with it is, this is one of the first movies I saw in theaters. We had, like, I was born in '87, so I'm 7-ish years old when this comes out, and how I got to see it. We did not have a lot of money. So we usually only got to see maybe 1 movie, 2 movies a year in theaters when I was like that age. And it was usually on like a matinee for like, $1 movie if the movie had already been in theaters for several weeks.
Sure.
How I got to see this was I taught myself to read.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents had been working with me, picture books and single words here and there. And I think I was in kindergarten when this came out. And yeah, so I was like maybe 6. So on the back of these receipts at our local grocery store, they would sometimes print coupons, like on the back of the ticker tape. And I went to my parents and I'm like, I want to see Last Action Hero, because I had already seen tons of action movies, whatever they were on TV. And my parents were like, no. And, they're like, well, it's too expensive. Movies cost $5 a ticket, which, you laugh at that now, right?
Yeah.
But now it's like $13 for an adult ticket. So they're like, it's $5 or it's $4.50. We'll have to wait till it's a matinee. No. It's the weekend. No. And I said, well, it says on here, if you buy one adult admission, you get a kid's one for free. And my parents just looked at each other and they went, well, he read it himself. So there's the reward. The reward is my dad had to take me to see this in theaters. So we go. I am by far the youngest kid there, for sure. And we're sitting dead center. It's one of the few movies where my father didn't fall asleep watching either, because enough was happening. And, I'm sitting there the whole time and absorbing all of it. As a 5, 6, 7-year-old, you're not going to get 90% of the jokes, but just the spectacle of it was like, this was my favorite movie that whole summer. Which when your attention span is of like a 5, 6-year-old, that says a lot. So when this finally came out on video, we didn't have at the time a VHS machine. We were beta people because my parents got a beta machine for their wedding, and that's what we had. So I just remember my grandfather handing me a beta cassette, because this did not come out on beta, handing me a beta cassette because he purposely, like, he bought a copy for himself and then dubbed a copy from VHS to beta for me, and I treasured it like it was like gold. So I watched it, I don't know how many times, probably 30 times as a kid. And going back to it I think I had the DVD, and the DVD was full screen, but most people's DVD player TVs were full screen in the early 2000s anyway. And then I skipped flash forward, and I noticed that there was a Blu-ray release from Sony, and I never ended up picking it up. But then Mill Creek put out and issued the Blu-ray, and I think it was last year. They did a reissue because they picked up a lot of the Sony Columbia library, and it's like $6 on Blu-ray, and it's in the proper aspect ratio, ultra wide, proper surround and everything. It's bare bones. There's not any special features, which is criminal. I don't know why they never produced any for such a large, even if it wasn't like super commercially successful when it first came out, but for an Arnold movie to have no features.
I seem to remember there was either a documentary on YouTube or there was a really good article written somewhere about all the behind the scenes of this. I think Shane Black has come out and said some stuff in the last couple years about this movie.
I don't, and off the top of my head, I'm not going to go over to my shelf now to pick up the Blu-ray, but I don't even think there's a commentary.
That's weird.
Yeah, because this would have been great to hear the directors talk about.
When you put the disc in, it goes to a menu that just says play movie or chapter selection.
I guess I didn't notice.
Yeah, because I just have my player set usually to play the movie directly anyway. But so that's my background, is that as a kid, this was, and I'll say this now, and I will defend it. This is Arnold's best movie.
Really? Ever?
Yes.
That's a bold statement.
I'd say his best movie is Terminator 2.
Incorrect. This is his best movie, because this is the movie that will actually stand the test of time far beyond anything else he ever made.
That's a bold statement, kid.
That's very bold.
Yes, and I will say that because it was created, whether intentional or not, to end the entire era of the action star. There wasn't going to, the idea behind it is that era is over, and if you look, pretty much every movie that came out after was not a pure action movie, it was a thriller.
I think I can make a pretty good case for most of Van Damme's catalog.
Van Damme after 1994 wasn't going to make anything big anyway.
I don't know, because I want to say Time Cop and The Quest and stuff like that.
Those are martial arts movies, dude. That's different. We're talking the big dumb Lethal Weapon action movie. This was sort of the end of that, and then there were revivals later on, but also just how much it pokes fun and satirizes not just the genre but the Hollywood system itself. And I will say this: it's not just my favorite movie. I will actually stand by saying that it's his best movie.
Wow!
I think I would agree that it's in my top 3 Arnold films without a doubt. But I don't know if I would say because it is fantastic. It is fantastic in many ways.
I'd say it's definitely in my top 10, having upon a second rewatch.
What I'm saying, Michael, is think of this. Today's day and age, you've got certain standards that you're used to for films. We're past, for the most part, shaky cam stuff, thanks to movies like John Wick, where it's just more about creative shooting. But that, we're considered, you and I, Michael, are considered millennials, right? Because we're born in the 80s. Yeah. You're sort of borderline
Gen X.
Yeah, and I'm sort of somewhere in between, because they're millennials seems to go on for so long as far as a generation goes.
And I guess I'm the generation before.
You're Gen X, yeah. Whereas I would say I'm like end of Gen X / very start of millennial. My brother, being born in the early 90s, is millennial. Anybody born, I guess, after 2000, they're calling them like Zoomers or Gen Z.
The Zennials or something?
Yeah, whatever they want to call them. But look at anybody born after, let's say, 1995. If you try to show them most of the Arnold movies, like Running Man, even to a certain extent Terminator, they'll watch the movies, and if they can even sit through them, they'll say they look old, they feel old, they're like they don't have patience for the kind of movies that we liked.
I think you could show them the first 2 Terminators. Beyond that, no.
I don't think you can show them T1 at all. They're like my brother likes stuff because I showed it to him, but I know his friends, and I know people younger than him. I've worked with people younger, and they have zero interest in any movie made before the year 2000. It's it's literally a generational thing. They see film grain and they can't stand it, or they see a certain film style and it doesn't work. Yet
I know, man.
I can't believe that,
because I've done a lot of foster care, right? I have kids that are young and that love older movies. Absolutely adore them.
It can exist, obviously. The point I was just trying to make, sorry, was that I feel like you can show Last Action Hero to a younger audience, and I think that they get the film more than they would get other Arnold films from beforehand.
I will agree with that, just because this movie, Last Action Hero, is more of a fantasy than an action film. I mean, it is action, but it's a fantasy, and that's generally what I get out of it, is that it's satire and fantasy. So it feels different to me. And to put it in perspective, the other top 3 Arnold films for me would easily be Terminator 2 and then True Lies.
I would go Terminator 2, The Running Man.
Running Man's fantastic.
And maybe Commando. And the main reason I suggest Commando, because it is Arnold at his most Arnold.
And as much as I love the Arnold movies like that for being Arnold movies, like I love Conan, I even like Raw Deal. There's a lot. Red Heat people forget about.
Red Heat's great.
I love all of them, but I would say my top 3 would be Last Action Hero, then True Lies, and surprisingly not one of the Terminators. I actually like Eraser more than Terminator 2. Eraser. I know.
Yeah.
I just it's to me, that's one that can pop on, and it's one of the like perfect 90s action movies.
Huh.
I know. that's for me, but I still think that, without beating it too far into the ground, it might be the most creative action movie ever made.
I will,
and most ambitious.
I can agree with your stance. I don't know if I would say that myself, but I can see where you're coming from. It is very unique. It is very original in what it's trying to do. We haven't really even talked about what the hell this movie's about.
Okay, right? So we've set up our backgrounds. We all love this film, and probably for similar reasons, and probably for some different. We can analyze it, as we go. But yeah, if you want to do the honors of maybe Aaron explaining the basic plot.
Okay, the basic plot is that this kid has a pretty rough home life. His father died. His mom's obviously overworked, and they're living in a crappy New York apartment. But like many of us that would be listening to this, he's kind of escaped into the world of movies as a way to like ignore the problems in his life. And so he goes to this old, beautiful, rundown movie theater. And it turns out the guy that's running the projection booth has a ticket that was given to him by Houdini. I got to talk about that after this. But with this ticket, you can enter any movie that you want and become a part of the narrative in a way. So he ends up going into his favorite action movie series, Jack Slater, and he's watching like Jack Slater 4, which is the brand new movie that's coming out. So like the main character is played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, but inside the logic of the movie, he is Jack Slater, and everything inside the movie is fantastic. Like it just is nothing but movie logic in a great way. Like stuff that I would normally bitch about, like, oh, come on, that's a continuity error. They directly reference the fact that there are continuity errors, and it's okay because that's how the world works. Like when Arnold gets dumped into the La Brea tar pits, and he comes out and he's covered in black tar, and he just gets a paper towel and wipes himself clean, and there's no tar at all on him afterwards. And the kid is like, tar doesn't just wipe off like that.
And his daughter shows up and says, I thought you might need some clothes.
Yeah, exactly. And this doesn't work like that. Come on, you're always saying this is a movie. And it's a giant wink and nod to all these like bad movie writing. I don't know. It's great. But it turns out that inside the movie, the villain gets a hold of this ticket and is able to leave the movie and come into the real world. And oh my God, the stuff that happens in the real world with Charles Dance.
Yes. Who recent, like younger listeners would know as Grandpa Lannister from the Game of Thrones series. Probably one of the best evil characters in the last 20 years.
Oh my God. I absolutely love him. where he's reveling in the fact that the world no longer works the way that it did inside the movie. That he can just full on murder people and no one seems to actually care.
Yeah, and we're jumping ahead, but let's talk about that scene. When he gets out into the real world in New York City, he witnesses a mugging. Somebody gets killed, mugs it, and he hears them say, "Take his shoes."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Take his shoes." And then he looks around left and right. People keep walking. He doesn't hear any sirens. He looks at his watch and he looks perplexed. And then the next scene with him is he goes up to a mechanic working on a car and he says, "I'd like to test a theory." And he goes, "Hey, what can I help you with?" And he goes, "Well," pulls out his gun and shoots him point blank. Then looks at his watch and starts timing, because in movie logic, the cops are there within 10 seconds. Unless there's like some big plan about it. And he's like, okay. And then he goes out into the street and people are walking by and he keeps yelling. He goes, "I've killed a man."
Yeah, "I have just shot somebody and I did it on purpose."
Here's
no
nothing.
one gives a crap. Yeah.
And then he goes, "I said I have murdered a man and I want to confess." And somebody yells, "Hey, shut up down there."
Yeah.
And that's all he hears. And then just the look of like relief and just glee on his face right after. Because in this world, the bad guys can win.
That's what he says. Yeah, and it's, oh god, yeah, this whole movie is fantastic. Just when you think it's kind of starting to peter out, that he's going to jump into the real world, they're going to chase after him, and he's going to get.
But yeah, so let's rewind. So yes, the kid goes to see Jack Slater 3, one of his favorite movies, and it sort of cuts out because the film reel evaporates because the elderly man played by, was it Robert Prosky? Yeah, plays Nick the Protection. He wasn't paying attention. He gives him the ticket, yada yada yada, and then we get the first ridiculous scene. Well, I guess the first ridiculous scene would be the scene from Jack Slater 3 where they show up, and this is where it sets up that whole world that the logic we're gonna see later on in the film, which is there's a big showdown at the end of the film, and Arnold's character shows up by walking across the top of 30 cop cars that somehow have wedged their way into the street. And Tina Turner is the mayor.
Yeah.
And just the ridiculousness of like the captain being the stereotypical 80s TV / movie captain that yells incoherently. You can't understand what he's saying. Screaming for everybody, and Arnold shows up. Every line Arnold says, when it's a catchphrase or a cool line, is accentuated with a guitar sting.
Yep. And that's it, and they play that off through the entire movie, that like, yes, this character always has rock going, like instrumental rock of some sort, going in his car, and then when he's in the real world, he gets exposed to classical music and he's like completely enamored with it.
Yeah.
Like, I think I like this.
Well, yeah, and he's like, and Danny's like, no,
you can't. You've turned him into a wuss.
Yeah, because every time Arnold does something cool in it, you just hear that brown now.
Yeah.
So he shows up, and then it ends that scene. We get the ticket. Danny goes to school and has to watch a Laurence Olivier Shakespeare movie. And then we get our first surrealist moment, which is his imagining Arnold playing. Oh, geez, am I?
He was in Hamlet. He was in Hamlet.
Yes, that's right.
Rotten in the state of Denmark.
Yeah, and he starts attacking everybody and just starts slashing them away. And it was a really cool effect that was, I think, later on they sort of perfected that look for the Sin City movies, where
it was all black and white with just some color highlights. To make
which would have been extremely expensive to do in the early 90s.
Yeah, that should have been done by hand.
Yeah, because this is not the era of filming digitally, or like the only other way to do it would have been filming it in black and white and then colorizing it, but they did some sort of computer effect to it. Because you could see other colors sort of peeking in. But yeah, see, stay thy hand, fair prince, who said I'm fair, and he pulls out an Uzi and just starts wasting everybody. To be or not to be. not to be, and then just blows everything up with. And it's like what? Like that's his vision of what Shakespeare should be. and I'm still almost 30 years later waiting for Arnold to make that movie.
Yeah, Hamlet, where he's just like riding around with a machine gun. Yeah,
I would totally watch it.
oh, I would too. Yeah, no doubt, that would be great.
I would like pay some serious kind of Kickstarter money for that. Like, hey, $100 for a 5-minute short, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, make a sequel to it, sort of thing. Have Arnold do it for charity.
Yeah. Oh my God, he'd raise that money so quick.
I mean, he raised how much money to have people ride around in tanks with him? So I mean, he could do it. So after this, Danny's home gets broken into, and the guy tries to steal all his crap. He ends up sort of escaping, blah 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 blah, and then, like you said, he gets sucked into the movie, and Art Carney is playing Arnold's second cousin.
Yeah, his favorite second cousin, Frank.
His favorite second cousin, who's 50 years older than him. And I believe it was Art Carney's last movie.
It was,
last screen appearance. And it has the classic like trope of there's an old cop and a young cop going up to the door. They go in. He starts reading cards that were left on Art Carney's body, and it's as he moves them, it's like 5, 4, 3, like as if the bomb was somehow tied to him moving the cards.
Yeah, it's the weird logic. And then like the fact that like Danny's watching this happen, and he's and like the house explodes, and he goes, it's a minor flesh wound for Jack, and both cops are dead. And like that's exactly what it is, because that's how the movie logic works. And the guy's like 2 days from retirement, and then
it does a saxophone sting from Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, Lethal Weapon.
So it's so good, and remember, watching it now, it's funny for us because, and if you're a new watcher, you're like, oh yeah, it's making fun of old movies. This was making fun of contemporary movies. So I wonder if anybody actually got offended by it at the time.
I don't know if I would say it's making fun of it. It's satirizing everything though really well, and it's Arnold satirizing himself.
Oh yeah, pretty hardcore too.
Yeah,
like people didn't realize that he had such a sense of humor of himself until this movie was made.
Can I like? There's the ticket comes from Houdini, and
yes, Chris, go ahead.
Kind of loves Forteana, weird things, weird history. Let's put it that way. I always thought, even back when I originally saw it, that was some kind of BS, because Houdini hated supernatural anything. He thought it was all a load of BS, and did his best through his entire life to disprove spiritualists and anyone trying to profess magic. So like the fact that this ticket is magical and it came from Houdini, I don't know.
Well, I just watched it yesterday. I believe they said Houdini didn't make it. He got it from some mystic.
Yeah, but I mean, Houdini anti.
Well, my thought was that Houdini got it thinking it was a farce, and just hands it off to some kid, not realizing that it actually does have power.
Yeah, maybe, but I just thought that was a very odd kind of addition into it.
I guess part of it is like, can you name a more famous person associated with magic? At least even if people didn't know that was his stance, they knew the name.
Conan Doyle.
Okay. But does it have as much in the early 90s? Does it have as much name recognition as Houdini?
I mean, everyone knows the person who wrote Sherlock Holmes. I mean,
yeah, but I'd argue Houdini, you can say to the average lay person, like, oh, okay, they chose it for pop culture. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Fair enough. I just thought it was odd, even back when I originally saw it.
I think that might even just be like, we'd have to ask Shane Black if it was just a matter of he was thinking of names.
Yeah, like, and if anything, I think that might be my only criticism of this movie. Honestly, like everything else in this movie is fantastic.
Yeah, I think maybe it was to like tie it into Houdini being of the era of when that theater was built, sort of thing.
Could be too. It could be too.
But yeah, it's minor gripe, but yeah, I see your point for sure. So kid gets sucked in the movie, crazy stuff happens. Every time they're driving, Arnold's not looking at anything, and he's driving, and everybody around him's crashing because he's like not paying attention, but he's perfectly fine. So I love that little aspect to it. They meet. Obviously Arnold is skeptical of who he is and thinks it's all bullshit. And then we get introduced to the police station.
Oh, that's the weirdest part of the movie to me, because if the police station, it makes sense that it's this kind of beautiful place, because okay, if it's written in the movie that it's this police station's like a palatial estate kind of thing, okay, I get it. It's funny, move on. But it seems to be like the crossroads of all movies, police stations in LA.
Yes.
Which
there's cartoon characters in it.
Yeah, there's cartoon characters. There's Robert Patrick as the T-1000 walking out of it. It has what's her name from Basic Instinct?
Sharon Stone, yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Sharon Stone, yeah. She's in it as that character. And it just seems there's like futuristic cops with like latex.
They look like, yeah, exactly. There's cops that even look like I believe, I might be wrong, but I've always believed that there is a character in the background that's dressed like one of the police officers from Demolition Man, which would have been his rival film from the same year.
Oh, I have no doubt.
I think Demolition Man was a year later, I think.
Was it a year later?
I think so, because this would have been 93. Demolition Man, I want to say it was 94, 95.
Or was it? Yeah, you know what? You're right, but it has that similar look.
Yeah, there's a lot of cyberpunkish kind of latex in this. I was actually noticing that today. Also, random Angie.
Oh, wait. Demolition Man, same year.
Okay. I also noticed this in this movie too. The girl who's working at Blockbuster, that's Angie Everhart, and I know she was an ESPN model for stuff, but she was also in Bordello of Blood, which was the Tales from the Crypt movies that I really wish they kept making those, and they never did. But yeah, that was kind of a weird cameo. And one of the things I loved about this is the kid says to Jack, "Have you ever noticed how there's no unattractive women in this world?"
Oh, it's Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's like, it's California, kid.
Yeah, this is California. Yeah. It's the inside the movie, the logic makes sense to everyone inside the movie.
Well, and do you love how every day at the police station they're pairing up different oddball cops so that they can make their own sitcoms?
Yeah, today you get paired with the rabbi and Mazel Tov. Yeah, it's so okay.
and it's like one person is paired up with, and they even say holographic black and white Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah,
that I didn't catch until today. I was like, huh?
F. Murray Abraham's in it, and there's the kid makes a big point of being like, you can't trust him because he killed Mozart and Amadeus.
Yeah, dude, did you kill Mozart? Yeah, and that's the classical music that Jack Slater hears later on. It's something by Mozart. You mean the guy that killed Amadeus? Yeah, yeah. Or whatever, because of the weird crossing in movies. Yeah.
It's like he said you killed Mozart. Mozart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really? I kill a lot of people. I that's his reaction. I kill a lot of people. I don't know. But the casting in this movie
was really well done.
Anthony Quinn playing, a mob boss, even though he's Greek, like hamming it up pretty hard. Like we said, Art Carney was in it. F. Murray Abraham's great as the friend who's actually a double agent.
Charles Dance, top notch.
Charles Dance, yes. Tom Noonan as the Ripper.
Oh yeah, he's great because he plays both the Ripper and himself.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we'll get to that. Let me think here. I didn't recognize the actress that played Danny's mom, but she was pretty good for the small part she had in it. But
yeah, she was in a few movies back in the 80s.
Michael, you would have probably noticed that Arnold's daughter is Sonya Blade from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, and this was her first movie.
I think it was this, and then she went and did like Billy Madison right after.
Yep, she did this, Billy Madison, and then Mortal Kombat. And then she married, I think, like Pete Sampras or some professional tennis player. And they're still together to this very day. So hey, there's a Hollywood love story that kind of worked out. Which I was always sad she didn't do more stuff because I thought she had a great comedic timing to her, and she had a great physicality to her too. And she is kind of what I don't know. She sort of was that transitional point between the 80s teenage girl to the 90s teenage girl in terms of what I just found cute at that time.
Well,
In
they made her like have like the screamy role, which was like in all of how many times did we see that in like a Spielberg movie?
Mm-hmm. One line that I love out of Arnie, he's taking the kid to his apartment where he has all the same jacket and all the same shirt and all the same boots, shoots the guy in the closet, and he makes a quip at the kid. And he says, "You realize I want my daughter to go to prom or something like that. Instead, she spends her nights field stripping AK-47s.
Well, yeah, that's right. They walk into the apartment and he goes bang bang, and he's like, "What did you do that for?" He goes, "How'd you know a guy was in there?" He's like, "There's always a guy in there."
Yeah.
Like every it's his extra apartment, and there's always somebody there. And I love that there's guns in the closet, but the ninja in there doesn't touch them.
Yeah, because guns aren't that ninja's thing. He's gonna do
Yeah.
something else. Yeah.
Well, that ninja has like an Uzi.
Yeah, he's got his own gun. You know, that's
True. But I don't know if you noticed this, either of you guys. The Slater's boss in it, Lieutenant. Did you recognize what his name was?
Decker.
No.
Lieutenant Decker.
From Blade Runner?
No. Shane Black's partner on the Monster Squad.
Oh.
Director. So he wrote that name into it as like a little, I guess, homage. So all the cameos that appear in this too, when they go into the real world, like you have, I guess, pretty much anybody at the time that had starred in a movie with Arnold shows up at the premiere. There's even a little flash of Van Damme in there. Right? That would have been right around the time he was doing like Time Cop and everything.
He's there.
Yeah, Time Cop, Universal Soldier, yeah.
Yeah, you have Belushi's in there making fun of says something that you might not be able to get away with now. Then you also have like I said, there's like actual reporters that were TV reporters at the time in it. You have Arnold playing himself. You have his then wife
Maria Shriver or something like that.
Yeah, Maria Shriver. Yeah.
You have tons of other people with little walk-ons. MC Hammer trying to get a deal to do the soundtrack for the next movie. That dates it a bit.
I thought that was Bobby Brown, wasn't it?
Or was it Bobby Brown?
Maybe. It was one of the two.
It was somebody who was famous at the time.
Yeah.
So let me talk really quick about like the scene that actually got me in the feels in this.
Sure.
So throughout this movie, it's clear once again that the kid Danny is escaping into these movies mentally before he actually literally escapes into the movie, because his life is just not very happy. He doesn't have a very happy home life, and that Jack Slater, the character, is clearly his hero. He hero worships at his feet. He loves all of the movies. He knows everything about this character and is enamored with him throughout the film, right? So when they get into the real world, Jack Slater, doesn't expect to be hurt at all, because in action movies, the action hero just doesn't get hurt. And he gets shot, right? He's dying. And Danny is losing his mind, because in many ways, Jack Slater has become his surrogate father, somebody that he looks up to as like the strong man, the person that can always be relied upon. And at this point in the film, the ticket is kind of moving around outside near Times Square, and it's going past like kind of seedy movie theaters. Except one of the movie theaters is playing an Ingmar Bergman film, and
the Seventh Seal.
Yeah, and here we see Ian McClellan playing Death, and Death comes out of the screen, and Death is kind of following Jack Slater around at this point because he's dying, and that's what you as a a viewer are seeing, and that's what you think. And so Danny takes Jack Slater back to the theater that all this started in, and Death's walking down the aisle towards them near the screen, and Danny starts freaking out. You can't take him, it's not his time, I'll stop you. And Danny grabs one Jack Slater's freaking hand cannon, and he's trying to protect his hero, that he just can't let this guy go. And Death stops and he goes, "Oh no, I was just curious because this man's not on any of my lists." And Danny gets that, he looks frightened. Like the first time, instead of being angry, he's actually scared, and "Are you here for me?" And Ian McClellan gives that kind of side glance and just a hint of a smile. He goes, "No, I'm not here for you. You die, grandfather." And he just kind of walks away.
Yeah.
And
he just says, I was curious.
I was curious that this guy, but it was the fact that, like, here's this kid who doesn't seem like he has anything in his life, and his hero is dying right in front of him. And Death now is staring down at him, at this little kid. And Death's like, "No, you die a grandfather." And that gives him hope that he has something in the future, that there's something for him here in the real world. It might be a lie from Death, because of this, who knows what this Death is. But I mean, in the end, it probably is Death, being that it knows who Danny is.
Well, yeah, let's sort of take a brief moment to talk about this. And I talked a bit with Michael on our last regular recording, and I said, the interesting thing about this movie is whatever world you go to based on the movie, you end up having to live and obey the laws of physics and reality of that world that you're in.
Yeah.
So, for instance, that's how Arnold can get hurt in the real world, or how Danny can have like an ET moment where he's riding his bicycle across rooftops in that world. And when Death gets pulled out, and I don't think I've seen other people talk about this, Death gets pulled out of that movie. In that movie, Death is written to portray the personification of what we believe, in quotes, death to be in our world. So in doing so, when he comes to our world, he's obeying the rules set out for him, which is that he was rooted in the reality of what we believe in this world anyway. So the question becomes, does he have powers from that world, or is he just being able to be manifest of what death is in our world? Because he walks by a cop.
Yeah, he walks by a cop
and touches his shoulder. Yeah, he touches his shoulder, and as he walks away, he dies, or he appears to die. So is it that he's playing out what would naturally have happened?
Maybe death is a universal constant between every universe. So personification looks like Ian McKellen.
Death not necessarily in Arnold's world. The good guys don't die, but the movie he came from was Ingmar Bergman's analysis of life and death.
So and that is death. Like
that is death as we perceive it. So when he comes here, he doesn't get the powers of death. He already has them. Yeah.
And that's what makes that moment in the theater so amazing, is that, obviously Jack Slater is not on any of my lists. It means Jack Slater will never die.
Yeah, he can't die as long as he, goes back to where he's supposed to go.
But Danny he knows all about Danny.
Immediately. Never looks him up. He didn't meet with with anybody else to learn this. He just intrinsically knows.
And that's that scene choked me up, just because of the hope that it gave this kid.
Well, did you also notice something too? He's the only one not to go back to his world.
Yeah.
So death is literally walking amongst the real world after that, for probably ever.
Yeah. But it wouldn't that wouldn't be strange. It's not like that death is operating outside of the bounds of the world.
Yeah, he's not written like in a horror film as malicious. He's literally just the personification of death. So he's not going to go and make the world worse off. He's just going to touch whomever is ready to die.
Yeah, that's it. it made that scene to me very powerful. That was and it choked me up and drew some tears for whatever reason.
Yeah, so that's sort of near the end of the movie, getting sort of to where that is. There's some
action.
There's a lot of action, a lot of back and forth, a lot of great back and forth with Charles Dance and Anthony Quinn. Anthony Quinn always getting catchphrases and popular phrases wrong, and him arguing back and forth, calling him names. The introduction of when they meet Charles Dance in the house. How does it start? They knock on the door. What's his name? Old school New York professional wrestler. Is it Professor Tanaka or something? Answers the door. Who was used in so many movies like Three Ninjas, and he was in a ton of movies around that time. And Arnold says, I'd like to speak to the drug dealer of the house. And he's like, excuse me? We're out killing drug dealers, and we'd like to know if we could speak to the drug dealer of the house.
Yeah,
one moment, walks away, and Charles Dance shows up. And then he asks him if he's a henchman.
Yeah,
and
no, I'm sorry. I only shuffle as low as lackey.
Yeah, exactly. and the dogs are out there, and he snaps his fingers, and they climb up. On the Blu-ray, you can see this. You can see the actual platforms they're standing on.
Yeah,
but on the old VHS, it was blurry enough you didn't notice that. And just I love the whole aspect of him being like a Bond villain, where he's got the glass eyes, some that blow up. And also he takes the glass eye out as a continuity issue, and you can see his real eye. And then he puts another one on top of it. It's like, what?
Yeah, but I think that was a purposeful continuity issue.
Yes. Because the idea being that he doesn't really have a glass eye, or does he? Or something. But yeah, it was fun with that. He eventually comes after Danny and them, because Danny's, the stupid sidekick kid who doesn't realize that anything he says with an earshot of the bad guy can be heard. And he goes to investigate, and that's when you see Arnold's house, and they set up their little gags very well with explaining what the counterfeit money is and how it burns and does funny colors. And then when they break in and are interrogating the kid and Arnold's daughter, there's that goofy henchman who can't catch the gun. Mm-hmm. And because he keeps fumbling the gun, that's how Arnold's able to end up saving the day. So they do the foreshadowing, the purposeful setup, and it's obvious on purpose, which is great. Was it Skeezy the kid? She was supposed to kiss, and it's Skeezy, Skeezy, and he's like trying to explain it, like, who names himself Skeezy? And he has no last name at all. Like when he's telling the cops his name, it's one name, Skeezy. But I to this day, I've always loved the gag of the cop picking up, and he goes, it has some writing on it. Vengeance is, and he turns it, mine, and the whole place. Don't touch that, and then it blows up like a nuke. Yeah. And the only result from that is they don't go back to the home, but they're in the captain or lieutenant's office. Their clothes are dirty but not burnt, but they're smoking. Like they have like plumes of smoke coming off of them, like they're just straight from the explosion. He's yelling at him, and then steam comes out of his ears. and that's the moment where they become the buddy cop, where they trust each other. So then eventually we end up meeting some of the other, I guess, ex-partners, and there's the cartoon. Is it supposed to be like a take on like Bonkers, or like a Disney cartoon detective played by it's Danny DeVito doing the voice, right?
Yeah.
So this would have been right around the time, I guess, what Twins came out a couple years beforehand, something like that, or around the same time. So he shows up. They end up going to the funeral where Leo the Fart's going to pass gas one last time. Arnold does a pretty good job of playing the comedic character there, where he's, oh my God, this man's not dead. And he's like mouthing like fake words coming out of his mouth. Is there a doctor in the house? And I'm a doctor. Could you check out his chin? And then knocks him out.
Yeah.
So and of course, because it's an Italian gangster's funeral, everybody has guns. every single and they all have like machine guns, and they're firing. There's like 500 people firing at him, and they all miss, right? So fast forward, then they go into the real world, like we saw. Arnold, punches through glass, realizes that it hurts. You want to see an explosion? He starts firing his gun at the car, and he's like, not a word when it doesn't work.
It must have armored gas tanks or something like that. He said,
yeah, or because he's never had to aim before, or the fact that that's not how things blow up. When he does his solution to try to find to find Benedict is to just keep walking, because somebody will give him the information.
Mm-hmm. A clue always turns up, or I always run into the bad guy.
Yeah, it's either a clue will walk up, somebody will walk up and give me a clue, or I'll be kidnapped. It always happens.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, not realizing that that's not how cops do real work. And then, but of course, because this is a movie within a movie, it does just magically come to them. It happens right in front of them. Did you like? I didn't notice it as a kid, but did you like how Charles Dance apparently becomes the only person aware that the whole movie is a movie? When he gets the magic ticket, he doesn't just do his bad guy dialogue narration to himself. He turns and breaks the fourth wall and talks to the camera.
Yeah.
So he figures out that not only is his movie a movie, but the movie itself is a movie.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool, and just the stunts of like how when they come to get him, he's sitting down, drinking. They crash their monster truck into the house somehow and land right next to him, and he doesn't even blink.
And it looks like he's there. I mean,
yeah. Like that must have been a weird shot to do, but he doesn't even flinch, because he's come to the realization that the movie is a movie, and he's just like, yeah, they're going to do that. He knew they were going to come for him, and there's no point in blinking or flinching or anything.
Yeah, and he doesn't have to worry about being killed at this point because he hasn't monologued yet. Like,
yeah,
he gets it. So no matter what happens, he's not going to die. So he's just completely calm and relaxed. It's amazing.
And the driver, he disappears into the real world too, and I don't think that he ever goes back.
I think, yeah, that's weird. But did he die when they played chicken in the alleyway?
No, I thought they both got out. They're running away together, I thought. Maybe not. Maybe he did. Because I didn't see it. It's not on screen. So in my own headcanon, he's still a professional wrestler because of that. But yeah, there's a couple little plot holes that might be purposeful. And the last thing I really want to talk about is the Ripper.
Yes.
The Ripper character is an over-the-top, ridiculous action movie villain.
The fact that he's wearing fucking chainmail.
Well,
chainmail and a rain slicker. Yeah,
and he's a standard Arnold villain from the beginning. That's the point. And then he gets pulled into the real world, and
I just had a thought. He's a reference to Commando, because Bennett wears chainmail in that movie for no visible fucking reason.
Oh, yeah.
That just occurred to me.
Oh yeah. Don't be surprised. So he plays Ripper, right? And when Charles Dance goes around and starts pulling people out of out of movies, his horrific idea of literally having Freddy Krueger come out and all these people he wants to pull, and it's references to movies that are from different franchises and companies they don't own. So it's kind of neat that they just went with it and didn't care that it didn't all have to be Sony owned properties. But when he pulls the Ripper out, how he's like very calmly, very politely explaining to him while they're having coffee, he goes, I know this must be scary, it must be confusing for you, but if you do everything right, you can basically own this world. And when it shows the Ripper, he shows up at the premiere and just walks on. They think he's Tom Noonan who plays the Ripper in the movie. Tom Noonan plays Tom Noonan and the Ripper. And when he shows up, was it Entertainment Tonight or somebody's talking to him?
Yep.
And they're like, what are you doing here tonight? And he's like, I'd like to kill somebody.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, I'd like to kill somebody tonight. And they're just like, ooh, great, the Ripper, Tom Noonan. And then his agent's like, what the hell are you doing? You want to be typecast? Blah, blah, blah. You did. What was it? He asked if somebody showed up in costume to the premiere of something. It was Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson.
Did Jack Nicholson show up to the premiere as the Joker? I don't think so. And it's implied that he kills him. He kills his agent. And then like a minute later, or like right after he walks away, they're talking to a few more people, and then Tom Noonan walks up. Hey, it's Tom Noonan, the actor that played the Ripper. And he's like, hey, what's up? And they're like, the look on their faces of confusion.
Yeah. Oh, what the hell?
What the hell's going on? And then the big sort of fight in there, everybody down, blah, blah, blah. Arnold attacks them. You're the best lookalike I've ever seen. I could get you work. and then that almost poignant line of like how he's made his life very difficult. He hates him. Mm-hmm. Like, is it almost like Arnold talking to himself, like it's the double-edged sword of fame?
Yeah.
Like, and how even his wife's like, they poke fun at him always plugging his businesses when it's tacky and and that was in the tabloids at the time. It was tacky. Stop. He's focused so much on selling Planet Hollywood and all the other crap that he's got. And then she's like, you're so embarrassing. Walking away with him. But I did love the little line as they're walking together and there's all the news reporters and he whispers to her, "That's the Inquirer, stay away from them." This is pre-made. So but yeah, it's little quips like that, little tongue-in-cheek jokes are great. And as you said, you lead up to the final showdown. He learns from his mistake from the third movie and, defeats the Ripper, and it plays out with them going after Charles Dance. And then there's the final monologuing thing that even though he's in the real world, or supposedly the real world, he still can't break through his personality and not monologue and tell the whole story.
Yeah.
And
he's made that way. He's written that way.
But he is smart enough to keep one chamber empty, just to throw him off. And there's the final battle, blah blah. They take him to to go back in, and goes into his world where it would just be a flesh wound, or it would be nothing. Doctor. The doctor shows up.
Is this kind of joke? Yeah.
I wouldn't even call this a flesh wound. They help him up, like they're acting as if it grazed him.
Yeah.
But it was right in his lungs.
Yeah.
So
he was bleeding out.
Yeah. So it has that poignant speech, and it sort of ends with him getting to keep the ticket. So it's assumed he could always go back if he wanted to. They don't really show that. But there could have been a sequel if they had chosen to make one. I would have liked to have seen a little more at the end. Some things tie up, or maybe have Danny have more confidence at home at school or something. But it did have a good enough ending as is. It was already a longer film for an action movie.
Yeah, like 2 hours 10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, which for the time was pretty long. Like, we were used to Arnold movies being like an hour and 40. So yeah, like that's. I'm trying to think if there's any other major points I'd like to make on it. Other than the music was timed perfectly with it. They did a pretty good contemporary soundtrack for it.
The Megadeth song was really well picked.
Yeah, well, this was made for the movie.
Yeah, like it's really good. I was listening to the radio station that I listen to all the time, WMMR in Philly. I got them to play that as of this recording last night because of this show.
Again?
Yeah, it was so cool hearing that again.
You look at the soundtrack. This is back when they used to, when they had so much sway that the record labels would get the artists to make new songs for an entire album. And it's not like they would just pull a famous song. So Angry Again from Megadeth, it's one of the first times I would have heard them. There's it's so eclectic. You got AC/DC, Alice in Chains, Megadeth, Queensryche, Def Leppard, Anthrax, Aerosmith, another Alice in Chains, Cypress Hill, Tesla, Buckethead. Like it's so
90s that
so 90s, but a mix of different genres.
Yeah, and there's almost not a bad song in the entire bunch. I think a lot of people have slept on this soundtrack, actually.
Yeah, I'm not sure who did the score, but it was Michael Kamen. Okay, I see.
one of the things that I'd like to point out, because it's Mike, I love the guns in this movie. Arnold uses a Desert Eagle, and it's not until he hits the real world that he realizes that gun only carries 8 bullets, maybe, and that's with an extended mag. But Arnold looks awesome with a Desert Eagle. He should use that gun more often. And Charles Dance's gun is wickedly cool.
Well, yeah, that's a target gun. It's a 357 Magnum. He says it's like an 11 millimeter or something in the movie, but it's actually like a 357 target pistol.
But yeah, like there's just so many interesting things in the background, and I can imagine that they told the guy who was doing the guns for this movie, they're probably like, okay, certain guys have to have iconic weapons, just make it happen. Everybody else is whatever else is available. When they're at the kind of funeral scene and they're just randomly pulling out weapons, I was like, I know what that is. I know what that is. I know what that is. I know what that is.
Somebody in the background has a crossbow.
That I missed.
So you've got that. Here's why the movie failed. They apparently lost $26 million because it had a fairly extensive marketing budget. Jurassic Park opened a week before.
Oh,
so yeah, and apparently Jurassic Park was moved to that. So it didn't do what they were expecting. Obviously, there's a lot of little Easter eggs in this, but the one Easter egg that I only noticed for the first time watching it yesterday is this was the first film to be shot and audio recorded and mixed on what they call Sony Dynamic Digital Sound, SDDS, which is a format that sort of is a precursor to like DTS audio and like the high end audio we see now in theaters, like Dolby Atmos and everything. And it was actually mixed in 5.1 in theaters, which was a rarity at the time. Everything was still stereo or even mono in older theaters. And the theater that is the rundown one that he goes to at the beginning and at the end of the film, on the outside has the Sony, the SDDS, their official logo and symbol and letters and everything on the front of it, but it's worked into the construction signs as if it's a construction company working on like the rundown thing. So they even embedded like little Easter eggs to their own branding within it. And then there's like Burger King was a sponsor, obviously, because they're on like every scene.
Coke.
Yeah, and the other Easter egg that everybody sees is when they go to the Blockbuster and it's the Terminator 2 poster, and his proof to him that he's a movie character is to show him Arnold on T2, and it's Stallone.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty good for the time, and I remember reading that they kept that part a secret for long enough that like Stallone didn't see it till the movie came out and know that it was there. So I imagine, there was still that rivalry sort of going on between all these guys back then, that they would all see each other's movies. It must have got a chuckle out of them at the time.
I would love to get a replica of that. I mean, not necessarily the standee, but if you could get me a Stallone Terminator 2 poster, that'd be a pretty neat thing to get your hands on.
The question would be then, would you want not a Rambo one with Arnold, because that would look too much like Commando? Would you like a Rocky poster with Arnold as Rocky?
That'd be interesting. Like, I want something weird, or like Stallone in Twins or something.
Yeah, but yeah, like I think I'm at the end. Like we've done spoilers for this. I don't want to necessarily go into any more detail other than, you can buy this movie for like $6 or $7 on Blu-ray.
It's totally worth it. I mean, I think for something like that, and also go down the rabbit hole of YouTube, because like I said, I know there's something more behind the scenes, because I think Shane Black or John McTiernan had said something about this movie over the years.
Like Mill Creek is great because they released it for dirt cheap, but it's bare bones. I would love for like an Arrow Video or somebody to pick it up where they could do a proper remaster. There are some scenes in this movie that are pristine and look like they were filmed yesterday with how good the film stock is. A lot of the scenes where they're doing a lot of special effects, it has that Terminator 2 grainy, like washed out look, and that was due to the way they used to do the layering of the mats. So that stuff can be touched up if they still have the original negatives and go in a la like Star Trek or Star Trek The Next Generation style. I don't think they would have the money to do that much of a restoration, but it would be interesting to see them like go to the original negative and release this in 4K, because I'm sure that if we got a 4K release, we'd see even more Easter eggs in the background. There's not a single scene in this movie that wasn't deliberately set dressed.
Oh yeah, no, it's well made movie.
So yeah, that's my final thoughts. You guys have anything on it?
I had a lot of fun with it. I mean, I'm honestly surprised that I slept on it for so long. I said only seeing it once as a child, yet despite owning the entire toy line for this movie, I'm really be curious to know how many of these things are still worth anything. Actually, weird bit of trivia. As recently as this episode, there's a guy local to us on Facebook selling some of these toys for like $25 in package. So figure that one out.
I don't think I would necessarily want to have the toys. I would love to have like set used props for like the eyes.
If I had to pick one prop, I would pick Arnold's hero gun. Like, I want that Desert Eagle, that chrome plated thing. It looks badass.
Just buy one yourself. That actually works.
I'm in Canada, Aaron. No,
handguns are illegal here. Unless you're a police officer or you work for the Brinks truck armored car division.
Barely a handgun. Come on.
Would you trust me with anything more powerful than a slingshot?
I wouldn't trust you with a slingshot.
If it makes you feel any better, to me, Desert Eagle 50 calibers aren't that good of a handgun. They're just too powerful and too big for what they are.
I would want the prop they used for Charles Dance's gun if I was going to have a gun from
that's movie. A custom 357 target pistol. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It even has like a muzzle it has like a muzzle thing on it that actually will compensate for the firing.
Oh, okay.
If you watch the movie really closely, you can see the gas escaping from the sides of the barrel rather than the just straight out the front. Yeah,
I'll have to watch that again.
It had a unique way of firing for sure. Like I would say, as far as movie props, obviously the one that would be most sought after would be one of the golden tickets or a piece of it. But I think that the Vengeance is Mine glass eye, or either the red eye, the bullseye, or the Have a Nice Day happy face one. If you could get a hold of one of those eyeballs,
the happy face one for sure.
Yeah. Was it when one final thing, when Arnold tries to go after them when they I guess escape the house, and they're like, "Where are you going?" "Gotta catch the red eye." And then he jumps off the building, does a somersault in the air, lands like 100 feet down, and keeps parkouring before parkour was a thing.
Yeah, he's very like Assassin's Creed kind of movement here.
The only scene in the movie that I would say the special effects really don't hold up on is the scene where he's in the elevator being shot down, and that part breaks away and he goes to fall. It looks rough. Yeah. But other than that, everything else everything else holds up. There's more dummies in this because this is before you did CG bodies. A lot of practical effects. But that one that they really couldn't do it from that angle at that time, and make it look good without it being really grainy or sort of washed out. As when that piece of metal breaks away, and because we're watching it on Blu-ray, you can clearly see it's like a piece of wood, not metal. Yeah, it breaks away and he falls, and it's painted wood, and the look on his face. He has the good look on his face where he's falling, but it looks more corny than like at the end of like RoboCop when they shoot when he gets shot out the window at the end, and it's like almost claymation looking. That sort of has that effect here, but other than that, it's spot on.
I love it. That's all. That's what I'll say. I've already talked enough about it.
This isn't a rental. This is a buy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is our discussion and talk about Last Action Hero. Have you seen this movie? What are your memories about this movie? Are you like me and you had toys about this movie, or perhaps you have some other associations with this film? As always, you can reach us at ThisWeekInGeek on Twitter, or feedback at thisweekingeek.net if you want to get in touch with us via the old-fashioned email way. So anyway, guys, there might be one or two more of these things. I know we're supposed to do some Andy Sedaris before whenever we take our break. We are recording these in advance, so hopefully the world doesn't end. If not, I guess our final record will be about Picasso Trigger or something. Anyway, so until next time for Twigs Loose Cannon, I've been your host, Mike the Birdman. I've been joined with in Kitchener,
Alex, the producer.
and in Michigan,
Aaron Pollyea.
So until next time, folks, the theater is closed, and be excellent to each other. We'll catch you guys again next time, right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.
Hey, Claudius. You killed my father. Big mistake.
Something is rotten in the state of Denmark, and Hamlet is taking out the trash.
Stay thy hand, fair prince.
Who said I'm fair?
No one's going to tell this sweet prince good night.
To be or not to be? Not to be.